In this video, I've got 28 SEO tips for you that I took away from the event that I recently attended, Search Birmingham. These takeaways are from leading SEO experts, people like Charles Floate, Kyle Roof, Koray Gubur, and Nick Jordan. So if you're looking to improve your SEO game, you've got to watch this video through to the end because there is some really good stuff in here that you can take away and apply to your site right now. By the way, if you want more tips from the event, I did a video just the other week. It was this one, which is a collection of hot tips that I was able to get, not from the speakers, although there are some speakers in there, but from just talking to people and other attendees. There's some really good stuff in there too, so check it out. If you want to know if the event was actually any good, and whether these kind of events are worth attending, which, by the way, they certainly are, you can find the full story in this video. Do go check it out. You'll find links to both of those videos in the description, and you'll also find links down there to all the speakers that I talk about in this video. But let's jump straight into the good stuff. I'm going to start with Charles Floate. He organized the event and he opened the event with a keynote speech, and here's some of the really good bits from that talk. The first thing that he told us about was something called Google First Index Theory. Basically, when Google discovers your site, usually when you submit a sitemap or whatever, it's going to give you a quality score. Now, this quality score is going to stay with you and your site for around 2 years. And then it's only going to adjust it kind of on an incremental basis as you make changes to the site and as you add more content. Charles stressed that it's very important that when you launch a new website, that it's as good as it possibly can be. This means that it's full of some really high quality content, that you're scoring well on the web core vitals, that the site is loading really quickly, that you've got all your schema marked up. Basically, everything has got to be as good as you possibly can. So just launching a site in a bit of a rush without, doing everything that needs to be done is not a good idea, because that score that Google gives you when it first comes in is going to stick with you. And obviously you want that to be as high as you possibly can. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to kind of push it up just by making incremental changes. The next thing that Charles advised was that when you are building sites and adding content, think about the Google SERP features. The SERP features are, of course, things like the snippets, site links, images, videos, all that stuff. Keep that in mind when you're creating content and when you're publishing content. What is Google going to use for the snippet? Do you have a video? What are the site links going to be? The next thing Charles went on to talk about was multiple links from the same domain. So let's say you built some links and you get 2 or 3 from the same website, the same domain. Do they all count, or is it just the first one that brings some value? Well, it turns out that they all bring value, equal value in fact. So if they're pointing at different pages, each one of those pages is going to get an equal lift. The only thing that doesn't kind of aggregate together is DR. So you're going to get that DR boost from the first link, but then the subsequent links from that same domain are not going to push your DR up any higher. Charles talked about parasite SEO, which was something quite new to me. Basically, what parasite SEO is you find a site that Google thinks is of very high authority and trusts it. Kind of sites like Forbes and BBC and those real high-level sites, the ones that Google just trusts without question.
I trusted you. Now I'm down here.
Well, it turns out there are some sites that are highly trusted by Google that you can pay to have an article or a page on. What this means is you pay them, you give them an article in whatever niche it is you happen to be promoting. You may also include some of your affiliate links within that article, and that article is probably going to rank very well very quickly. Sites like Outlook India, The Jerusalem, and Men's Journal are some examples of sites that will accept payment for a post. And from speaking to people at the event, there's quite a lot of people doing this. They pay for a parasite SEO page with their affiliate links in sometimes niches that are particularly hard to rank, like casino, and they start getting traffic to that page very quickly and start earning commissions at an equally high speed. Charles shared a tool that I wasn't familiar with. It's the Google Data Highlighter. It's basically a way of you telling Google how your data is structured. So it kind of goes above and beyond schema. You literally fire up the tool, load up your site, which needs to be in your Search console, and just basically click on the elements within a page and tell Google what they are. You know, this is the title, this is the date it was published, this is an image, this is the author. And yeah, Google will then work out across your site how everything is structured, and it really helps Google crawl your site and understand everything that's going on. The final takeaway that I want to share with you from Charles Floate is his views on disavowing links. Now, you might be familiar with this. If you think that you're getting some toxic links coming in from some domains that look particularly shady, for example, SEMrush gives a report on this. What you can do is you can go into Search Console and you can disavow those links. Based on Charles's experience, he thinks this is a bad idea. He thinks that Google already understands links and is able to tell which links are good and which ones are not so good. So basically, you don't need to tell Google how to do its own job. The only time you might need to disavow links is if you've had a manual penalty and you're 100% sure that that link is damaging your site. Just to add to this point, while I was at the event, I did speak to a number of other SEOs that had claimed to have good success by disavowing links. So I'm not sure, but I trust Charles' experience and advice, and it does make sense to me. Let's move on to Kyle Roof, another SEO legend. Now, Kyle opened his talk with a funny story. He was really great to watch, very entertaining, but he did also share some fantastic bits of advice. Let's go through them. First, he talked about how SEO is basically a game of probability. You're not going to get it right every time. He basically said that if you're good at SEO, then probably 50% of the stuff you do is going to work and have a positive effect on your rankings. And if you're a high-level expert at SEO, it's still only going to be something like 70% of the time that what you do is actually going to have a positive effect. So that's good to keep in mind. He also pointed out some warning signs when it comes to SEO and various things that if you spot them could mean that you've got a problem. For example, if you are ranking for more and more keywords, but your traffic is not going up, that's a warning sign. Basically, if your site is not growing in any way or form and is going kind of flat, which is kind of like one of my sites, that's not a good sign. And yeah, you need to work on that pretty promptly, else it's only going to go one way, which is, of course, down.
It's about to go down.
Another warning sign is if you have a site that's been built mainly on links, and that's the key to its success. This kind of leads on to one of the other speakers that I'm going to get to in this video, Nick, who talked about content. You can't just have links without good content. During his talk, he mentioned friend of the channel, Doug Cunnington, and said that Doug's keyword golden ratio method is still valid and still a good way to pick out keywords. With regards to keywords, Carl recommended that you do go after some difficult keywords. We do tend to avoid the more difficult, the more competitive keywords, but this is not a good approach. You should target as many keywords as you possibly can and include those difficult keywords. He then brought it back round to content and reminded us of Google's goal, which is, of course, to rank good content, to give the Google users good content. So just think about that when you're preparing content and you're editing your content. Is it good? Is it worthy to be served to Google's users?
Yes, you can.
Kyle also talked about EEAT and basically, your authority. Google wants to know that the websites that it's ranking are real. It wants to know who's behind them and who's writing them. So make that clear to Google. Share your business information. Share your author's information. Make sure your LinkedIn and all that is up to date and that it's all linked to from your website. So it's very clear who's created the site, who's behind the site. Kyle is a big fan of schema and recommends using as much schema as you can. This can be easily implemented with a plugin like Rank Math if you're using WordPress. Schema is basically when you mark up elements of your articles. So if you've got an FAQ section, mark it up with FAQ schema. He did talk about link building and basically the logic that when a site is growing and doing well, it will build links. Now, of course, it will do it naturally to a certain degree, but you should also be doing that yourself with manual outreach and other link building techniques. The final thing that he talked about was basically repeating good things. If you're creating good content and building good links, don't stop. Keep doing it. Keep repeating it. Be consistent. And you will surely find success with your website. The next speaker I'm going to share some takeaways from is Koray Gubur. Now, his talk was pretty intense, pretty technical, and it was also the kind of mid-afternoon slot where everyone's getting a bit of an energy dip. But I did manage to collect some great takeaways. Let's take a look at them. First is to remember that nothing is random when it comes to Google. If you're losing rank, if a page has been de-indexed, if something else has happened, it's not random. Google does things for a reason. You've just got to figure out what that reason is. Next, he talked about how Google ranks sites based on costs. This is, of course, the cost to them as a technology company. When they're sending out their spiders and their crawlers, there is a cost to Google, all that processing power. So they're going to be keeping that in mind when they come to crawl your site. How much is it going to cost them? You can, of course, reduce the cost by making your site very easy to crawl, very fast, very clear, using things like schema, so that Google doesn't have to waste any time. It can come in, it can see what's going on, and it can index it quickly and easily. If you can keep Google's costs down, Google's surely going to like you and your website. Just keep in mind that Google does not want to index and crawl millions and millions of different websites if it doesn't have to. One example that he gave was, for 9 million different searches, Google doesn't want to index 9 million different sites. If it finds a site that's low cost and can answer a lot of queries, it's going to serve the pages from that site. Koray talked about something that was mentioned a lot at the event, which is topical authority. I think this used to be kind of called silos, but it basically means going deep into a particular topic within a niche and spreading that topic and the information across multiple articles. So you've got a lot of detail, a lot of coverage. And then, of course, these articles are linking together. Don't just create a bit of content about this and then a bit of content about that. If you're writing about this, then make sure you got lots of content on this before you move on to that. He talked about age domains and said that if you are going to redirect an age domain, make sure you do it to a site that's got lots of good content. It kind of goes back to Charles's first point about the first index theory. If you're going to send over a whole load of juice from an age domain, make sure that when Google goes through that age domain and visits your site, it's got lots of great content that it can index and it can give some of the value of that age domain to. His final tip, which is actually highly relevant to me because I've just been through this process, and that process is migrating a website or rebranding a website. So maybe you're thinking that you want to change the domain name on a site, maybe change the URL structure, maybe update the content, change the design. If you're going to do those things, he says it's best to do each one at a time, individually. Don't try and do them all at once. So if you're going to change the domain and the URL structure, just change the domain first. Just do that. Let Google come in, obviously do a 301 redirect. Once all that's done, then change the URL structure. And then change the design. And then update the content. Yeah, don't do it all at once, which is kind of what I did on my project. By the way, I've got a video coming up on that migration. It's basically the rebrand of bestcornpopper.com into snackeagle.com, which is live, by the way. I've got a full video on how all that went, what I did, and I'm just kind of waiting for the effects of the migration. So fingers crossed it's going to be okay. But yeah, based on what Koray says, I'm not so sure. The last speaker that I've got some great takeaways from is Nick Jordan. Now, Nick was different from most of the people there because he has achieved fantastic SEO success without building any links. Basically, his message was that quality content is essential. Your content has to be better than everyone else's on the search results page. He talked about to get good quality content, you have to spend good money. Average writers, they're just not going to cut it. Average editors, it's not good enough. They have to be excellent in order for you to produce and publish excellent content. Nick explained how Google uses its vast amount of data, the data that it collects from things like Google Analytics and Google Chrome and Google Android. Well, yeah, it uses that data to understand the quality of your content. Google knows about your time on site. Google knows about your bounce rate. Google knows a whole host of other performance metrics. And it uses that information to decide where to rank your content. This makes perfect sense. Other platforms do exactly the same thing. For example, YouTube. When I publish a video on YouTube, it sends it out to a few people. And it then measures the click-through rate, the watch time, the interactions. And if they're all good, it shows the video to some more people. And if it continues to be good, it goes to more and more people until those metrics start to decline. And yeah, it just makes perfect sense that the same applies to SEO. Nick then went back to talking about quality content and the challenges that you face when it comes to writers. Now, basically, he said that 95% of writers are going to be terrible. There's a lot of fake profiles out there. It's very hard to find some good ones. But when you do find some good writers, you got to do your utmost to keep them and to help them create good content by giving them very clear, concise briefs. He went on to say that the best writers in your team will make the best editors. So if you do have a writer that's exceptionally good at creating content, ask them to do some editing. Ask them to manage some of the other writers and publish their content as well, because they've got that real high bar when it comes to quality, and you're going to want that across all of your content. So there we go. There are the 28 takeaways from Search Birmingham. Loads of good stuff there. Hope you found that useful. Which one was your favorite? Which one are you going to implement straight away on your site? Let me know in the comments. I do read all the comments that I get. And remember, down there you'll find links to my other Search Birmingham videos, and also check out my shorts. I got loads of shorts from the event full of juicy little tips that you can just watch in a minute and you'll learn something. Of course, while you're down there, you'll also find the like and subscribe buttons, so make sure you click both of those if you haven't done so already. But until next time, good luck with your sites. Bye for now.